Hi there and welcome to MiWeek. I'm Christy McDonald. Thanks so much for joining us. You know, we're heading into the holiday weekend with more charges in the Flint water crisis. Plus, we'll get to anger in Warren over longtime Mayor Jim Fouts and what he's accused of saying. And then I sat down with Mayor Mike Duggan, who talks about jobs, neighborhoods, the investigation into the land bank, and what's in store for Detroit in 2017. All right, but let's get started with the new charges in the Flint water crisis. There are now felony charges against two former Flint emergency managers, Darnell and Gerry Ambrose. They and two others are accused of conspiring to use the Flint water supply when it wasn't safe to do so, as well as using a so-called environmental order to get the millions of dollars to enter into the new water system up there. So let's bring in our MiWeek contributors, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. Hey guys, it's good to see you. All right, you know, we're talking about these charges. I was surprised because I feel like now we're getting very high up in the chain. And the person that appointed those emergency managers was Governor Rick Snyder. And so I think it brings in a lot of questions here. When you first heard about these charges against Darnell and Gerry Ambrose, Nolan, what were some of your thoughts and points there?
Well, the biggest question I had was what specifically is the crime? Because from the charges that were read, you can't tell immediately what they did that broke the law. And it looked, you know, it looks at first glance and even at a deep second glance like you're criminalizing decision making, you're criminalizing public service, that people made the wrong decision. I've spent a lot of time over the last 2 days talking to the Attorney General's office, trying to get an answer to that question, and it boils down to this: that whole business of declaring emergency to clean up a polluted lagoon, and then bonding against that emergency because that got you around some very complex state laws, and using the money then to hook into the Caramondi water system. And that's where the false pretense charge comes from. But the Attorney General office itself admits it's a very convoluted path to get to the crime, and it's a very complex case that they will have an enormous challenge getting a jury to understand and getting a jury to convict, and then also showing that this doesn't happen every day at various levels of government.
And it's interesting too. I mean, these are felonies also.
They are.
20 years.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great explanation of what they're doing, and it's true. This is something that juries don't see, or that courtrooms don't see a whole lot, this kind of charge. So they do have a pretty high burden. But I think what justifies it is the consequence here. I mean, you're talking about tens of thousands of people who were poisoned. Now we have the Legionnaires outbreak, which is related also to the water crisis. And so I think to make this a very serious and unprecedented sort of criminal inquiry is justified, and they may get some truck with a jury who sits and thinks, well, good grief, this is what happened.
To pay for this.
Somebody should be responsible.
Yeah, but
you know, it does also, and I think this is the political implication here, is that it puts it inside the governor's sort of inner circle, because the EMs are appointed by the treasurer, and that raises the stakes. I asked the governor this week, you know, was there anything that he could foresee that would happen with these charges or subsequent charges that would get him to resign, where he felt like he couldn't serve? He said a flat no, absolutely not. He's focused on what he said was trying to fix the aftermath of the Flint water crisis. But I mean, I think we're at that stage where those are the kind of questions he's going to be asked a lot. And
I think he's also getting questions about how much of his legal bill is costing taxpayers as well.
Well, they just bumped it up another $1.5 million for the criminal part of his defense. But you're taking this case before a jury, and if you're the defense, you're going to say, look, their bosses were aware of what was going on. They moved it up the line. It feels like you're scapegoating these fellows. And plus, you know, have you ever made a bad decision at work? Nobody's in that office is fully confident that they can make this case to a jury and get them to understand.
It's about negligence, right? It's about knowing that the water treatment plant essentially was not ready to treat the water coming out of the Flint River, and going ahead and saying, well, we're going to chance this.
But that wasn't
is that negligent?
That wasn't a universally agreed upon at the time, nor was it a single person decision. I mean, the governor had all of these department heads, everybody in before that decision was made, tried to vet it, tried to get all the different sort of opinions. This was not, if this was Darnell's decision alone, or the other emergency managers' decision alone, and they did it sort of outside of the normal process, you could see a clearer case. But there were so many other people who were at a hand in this that it does feel a little bit like you're looking for scapegoats.
The Free Press, you guys did a great video essay taking a look at the people's lives in Flint over this past year, and we're going to have that actually for you coming up next week on MiWeek, so take a look at that. One other thing that I wanted to get to that everyone's talking about this week is this whole feud going on between Macomb County Executive Mark Hackle and Warren Mayor Jim Fouts, and the release of an audio tape that Mark Hackle says is Mayor Fouts disparaging disabled people. But I find this a bit of a bizarre back and forth between the two of them. And now people in Warren want Mayor Fouts to resign.
Well, they do, and a lot of people in Warren wanted him to resign well before this. He's never been a wholly uncontroversial figure. I mean, he says it's not him. It sounds like him. I don't know where you get to the point where you prove how you would prove it's him to with clear enough conviction that you could ask him to step down if he continues to insist it's not him.
Well, I think it's interesting too is that he's not, and this is the bigger conversation of how using the media or relating to people is he has not come out to the media. He's not talked to reporters about this. He's only communicated through Facebook, denying this and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, he is a very strange person. He's a strange public figure, and that he does say weird things sometimes. He gets into squabbles every once in a while with people that you would think, as the mayor of Warren, you might try to avoid. If he did say these things, I mean, it's really awful. I don't know that it rises to the level of resignation. I think that's maybe a
There are some
stretch.
pretty awful things.
There are, but I mean, again, this is somebody elected by the people of Warren. He stands for election every 4 years. He wins.
But other people have stepped down for a lot.
For less? I don't know. As a mayor,
and I don't know that either. My question is, Mark Hackle and the decision to release these while he's engaged in this other feud with him over landfill dumping. It really is classic, politics.
Yeah, as the world turns, we'll have to see how this one shakes out.